And our main purpose was to work with the Equal Justice Initiative to bring the historical marker to Madison County for the 3 known victims of lynching that occurred here. And so through our work with them, we decided to, 2 of the victims had been lynched in the courtyard downtown. And the other victim was lynched in a location that we were not really sure where that was. So we decided, and EJI approved for us to do 2 separate markers. So one to put in the courtyard for Eliza Woods and John Brown, and then another one for Frank Ballard that we'll do later. So we really met a lot with the city and county officials. We went to county commission meetings because we wanted to put the marker in the courthouse yard, which obviously belongs to the county. We had to get their approval. So that was a interesting process. And at first they said no, they voted us down. And then we didn't give up. We kept going and we continued to work with them. And then I think through that and community pressure and basically just kind of wearing them down, they finally revoted and voted yes and let us put it in the courthouse yard. So we got the approval to do it, and then basically COVID hit. And so we wanted to have a big ceremony to celebrate, getting this marker done, and we couldn't. So we put it off for quite a few months. And then finally we said, let's put it up, because part of what was happening in Madison County, this was during the summer, of course, a lot of civil unrest. Civil unrest was happening in Madison County too. And there were a lot of protests after George Floyd's murder. And there was also growing talk of removing the huge Confederate monument that's in the courthouse yard. So we were afraid, there had been some grumbling among the county commissioners, like, let's just not have any monuments at all. And we were afraid that if we didn't get this marker put up, that they would say nothing's going in that yard, and we would end up losing that opportunity. So we decided to go ahead and do it. And we got a contractor to dig the hole and put it in. And then we had a small ceremony just of people that were on our coalition, and just invited them. So we got the 1 marker up, and of course, then because of COVID, we are narrowing down the location of the second lynching, or the 3rd lynching, and I think we can figure it out. But I need to go to the Tennessee room at our library here, and I just haven't done it because of COVID. And so I hopefully be able to do that soon. But I've also been looking at the kind of that lost history that Margaret talked about. Not so much with parks, of course, for us, but looking at the history of one of the man who was responsible for the lynching of Eliza Woods, finding his history. And he's actually buried in Memphis, and he is hailed as a hero in Memphis because he was a police officer there. And he was killed in the line of duty. So he's hailed as a hero there today in Memphis, which is kind of interesting. So I'd say the biggest accomplishments that we've done is to be able to put that marker, to get the approval and put that marker in the courthouse yard, and to get a lot of people in Madison County to be supportive of our work. I think that felt really big to us, because initially people were telling us left and right, this will never happen in Madison County. So to be able to make that happen was really great. I think our biggest challenge that we have, I'm not sure that we really have any big challenge. I think once COVID's over, I think we want to, we want to come together. We want to do the marker for Frank Ballard. We want to work with EJI to get the memorial monument that they have. And probably the biggest challenge will be able to figure out where to put that. Although there are some opportunities here in Madison County that have come about lately. So what would it make it worth for our organization? I think part of it is to know that to see what other organizations are doing. And we're a small group. We literally are just a group of community members who came together and said, let's do this. We had no idea what we were doing. And so we've been fumbling and bumbling around, and we just got lucky. So it'd be good to know what other groups are doing and see what they're doing and get inspiration from them and be able to talk to other people. So I think that would be the biggest group for us. So I'm appreciative that Lamont is bringing this group together. So thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Anyone else next?
I could go, because I mean, it just fits with what Cindy Boyles was saying. I'm Carol from Weakley County Reconciliation Project, and we're basically doing the same thing. It was 3 different groups of people who separately went to EJI and then found each other afterwards and started meeting together to talk about what they had learned and how we could start bringing markers to Weakley County. We have 8 people that were lynched in 7 different lynchings. And so our goals are to find the histories, document. We have the general outlines, but not much more than that, and find the locations. We did, the easiest one is the most recent one, that was 1915, and that was very clearly spelled out in news articles. So we had a soil collection ceremony kind of privately, but because of COVID, we haven't been able to have a more public event. We have roughly monthly meetings that are now happening over Zoom, and we've recently started setting them up as kind of having invited speakers talk about their experience of race or of learning about racism, and inviting people into conversation that way. So our accomplishments are just sort of getting organized and moving toward having a public ceremony for the soil collection, and work on county commissioners about setting up a marker. I guess the lesson we've learned is it's going to take a lot longer than we thought. One of the obstacles, I mean, apart from COVID, just the obstacle is that people don't want to talk about it. And John Ashworth, I've called a couple times to say, how do I do this? How do I get people to talk to me? And so that's a challenge. And another problem we have is that most of the people in our group live in Martin and are connected with the university, but the Weakley County lynchings did not happen in Martin. So the soil collection was in Greenfield. None of us live in Greenfield. So it's not exactly a town gown split, but part of the problem is that since none of us are from Greenfield, it's kind of like, oh, those uppity Martin people are swooping in to, sort us out, tell us our history. And so it's just taking a while to figure out how to get Greenfield people involved so that it's coming from within instead of us imposing it. And then we'll have the same problem with Gleason and the other small communities where the lynchings did happen. And I mean, I've called, Cindy Boyles has come to Martin and John Ashworth both at the same time as a panel to help us out, and then we've called on them a couple times to just explain how Cindy bumbled through it, and then John has all this lynching sites experience, so hearing how other people are doing stuff is very helpful. We're just making it up as we go.
Awesome. That's it. Any next person? Next organization? Is it John?
I guess I could take a.
Oh, Eric?
Yeah, I guess I'll take a swing at it since everybody else is going.
All right.
I'm here with the Ed Johnson project, along with my esteemed colleague Beth Murphy over there. And basically, how we came to be is that it was a story about the bridge that was known by some communities and unknown by other communities. And actually, we got an article in the Washington Post today that's talking about it, that's highlighting that. The Black community never forgets a lynching. You never forget when one of these atrocities or acts of racial terror happened. And so we always knew what happened in 1906 at the Walnut Street Bridge when Ed Johnson was oddly enough, now that bridge is a pedestrian bridge, and it's nice, and you have a lot of pedestrian traffic, and people walk their dogs and go running on the bridge. And a lot of people don't know that it wasn't one, but it was 2 million that was hung from the bridge. But what made Ed Johnson's case so significant is the appeals that was made all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And a lot of that is spelled out in contempt of court and a lot of newspaper accounts, and a lot of articles. But even when his first legal team, which were white lawyers, told him to subject himself to death and to the mercy of the court, then you get two black attorneys that come along that say, no, this was a case of equal protection. It was due process of the law. And really, it was just bad legal work. And so let us appeal this to the Supreme Court. And for the Supreme Court to actually intervene in a state criminal court case, that's what made it unique. But even the Supreme Court, when they intervened, that didn't stop mob violence, and the mob still had no mercy. And so we thought that that story needed to be told, and it needed to be known by everybody who came on the bridge, just for the atrocity itself, for one. But secondly, for the the unique set of circumstances that still have bearing on us every day. Because every day you take Miranda rights for granted. You take right to a trial, right to a trial by jury, right to legal representation, equal representation under the law. You take all these things for granted, but it was the Ed Johnson case that sets the benchmark and the legal precedent for this. Now, officially, our mission is reconciliation and understanding and unity, so that you will have healing. But I always quote what Brian Stevenson said: you cannot have any reconciliation until you first tell the truth.
That's right.
And that reminds me of what, everybody here should read the address by Representative Samuel McElwee in 1887, when he went to the Tennessee General Assembly, and he said, "How long, oh heaven, must we bear with these atrocities?" And that was the first anti-lynching bill proposed in the Tennessee legislature. And oddly enough, he was one of the last three black legislators of the 19th century. But that address by Representative McElwee spells out what the people were trying to do and what they was feeling in 1887. A lot of these people were heroes. George H. White in North Carolina, he was a hero. He proposed the first anti-lynching legislation in United States history. And so recognizing these people, I know John said, what can we do? First of all, we can recognize these people for their contribution. That's one of our main objectives that we should be doing. And a lot of these cases, that they're interlinked. Because I know we talked about Eliza Wood. She was one of the few women that's actually documented that was lynched. Yes, it was women that was lynched too, down at Moore's Ford in Georgia. That one of those women were pregnant when they was lynched. And so it was women that was lynched too. And I don't want to filibuster, so I would just close saying, Tennessee has a unique role. One is because of, Ida B. Wells writing the Red Record, which was, one of the first platforms that actually documented and told of the atrocities of lynching. And another is just, is our historic role when you look at Edward Williams in Brownsville. Now there you have the first martyr for the NACP. And so we have a very unique role in telling this story. And for me, they're not commemorations. They're recognitions and acknowledgments, that I can't sit here and celebrate a lynching. One of the things that I know Beck would tell you that surprised me is the partnerships and the outreach that other groups that was doing or experiencing lynchings from all across the country, they would contact us and ask what we're doing and how we went about doing it and how we felt about it and how the people of the city and public officials, how they felt about it. And so just collaboration with groups across the country that was, undertaking this work at the same time. I sort of feel like it's divine intervention because you had so many groups, not only in this state, but all around the country, aligning themselves to have these acknowledgments and recognitions and tributes at the same time. But that's a little divine intervention in that. Now, I do think the EGI's work was important, as others have stated, but I think that part of the healing process, especially when you talk about some of the social constructs and things that are happening across the country, such as police brutality for one, where a lot of the young people are marching. And these are modern day lynchings. A lot of these shootings of young Black men. And not only that, we saw the United States Capitol get stormed. And that's the second time. I mean, my God, they took the British Army, the whole British Army to storm it the first time. And we saw an armed mob go in there. And you could just imagine, because that looked like a lynch mob to me. You could just imagine the people that they were searching for if they would have got their hands on somebody. Because that was a mob mentality when they stormed the United States Capitol. And so, like I said, the public just raising awareness of the story of Ed Johnson, the collaborative approach with other groups, not only statewide, but across the country, because we do learn from each other. And it's sort of, a rehabilitative effect when you can talk to somebody that's doing the same thing that you are. You sort of bounce ideas off of them, and even if, tell of some of the struggles. So this is not easy work that we're doing. It's not popular work, but it's necessary work. And I know I've taken up a lot of time, but I'll just stop right there. But in a nutshell, that's sort of where we are. Oh, it's one more lynching too. The one of Mchale Run in Ethel Springs is important. Now, James Weldon Johnson used that lynching to go all the way to the White House to Woodrow Wilson. And he asked Woodrow Wilson, have you heard the name Mchale Run? And that was coming out, I think, the red summer of 1917. And Woodrow Wilson, like, I've never heard of Mchale Run out of Ethel Springs. And James Weldon Johnson said, well, we will make you know his name. And that was part of the reason why the NAACP was launched 30 years in lynching crusade. And you know that because the account is found in Philip Palmer's Black Voices of America. I sometimes like to go back and read those old speeches and see what the preachers and the activists were saying in the 17 and 1800s and their own work. And so we have a special role in Tennessee by being on the sort of the precipice and on the front end of this. And I think that we should acknowledge and embrace and progress with that. And I'll close right there.
Thank you very much, Eric. You're so passionate, it's hard to cut you off. Who's next?
I'm sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna follow up, not that I can follow Eric very well, but just as far as like upcoming events and I guess big things, we're hoping that the memorial, the Ed Johnson Memorial, will be completed. We're hoping by the end of May. So that's huge for us. That's years and years in the working, and again, that's something Eric can tell you a lot better than I can. As far as a little bit closer in date, a week from tomorrow, March 19th, we'll have the commemoration of the 115th anniversary of the lynching of Ed Johnson, and so that will be a virtual event. So it's just like it's the first time we're trying to do Zoom, with Facebook Live. So, but anyway, just we've learned a lot, as Eric can also attest to, and it's this, as he says, this work is not easy. It is not easy, but I don't know. I feel like we're beginning to see just some small movement, at least here in Chattanooga, with this memorial being built and everything. I'll end there because I'll keep talking.
Hey, Beth, I will ask, you said you learned a lot. Was there any one thing in particular that stands out that you learned?
I think the big thing is just be willing to listen, be open and willing to listen. I'll say something that Eric was saying this afternoon, he was just talking about egos. Don't let your ego get in the way of this work. It's, yeah. So.
Awesome. Who's next? I think we got 3 more groups. We have LSP, Beck Cultural Center, and then we have We Remember Nashville.
You want me to go now, Lamont?
Yeah, it's fine. Anyone who wants to go.
Okay. Okay, this is John. I'll talk a little bit about LSP, and I'll mention Brownsville in the process since we just got started. LSP got started in 2016. Brian Stevenson spoke to a group of people in Memphis and said to them, Shelby County, you've had more lynchings than any other county in the state of Tennessee. And at that time, EJI had identified 21 lynchings that they knew about. And the people in Memphis came together and said, yeah, we need to do something about this, and began to do research. And right now we know about 35 lynchings that took place in Shelby County. One of the ones that stood out was the L. Person lynching in 1917. And they set about the idea of doing a 100-year memorialization of the L. Person lynching. There were over 5,000 people that came to that lynching, and I won't go into all the details, but one aside I do want to share with you, James Weldon Johnson at the time of that lynching was a NAACP field secretary who actually went to Memphis to investigate that lynching. And he went to the actual site and he wrote, and he said, as I sat looking at where the charred remains of L. Person was, he said, it suddenly flashed over me that the problem of race in America was the saving of black bodies and white souls. And I've said in many presentations, that statement is as true today as it was when it was uttered back over 100 years ago. What is our focus? Our focus is in recognizing and memorializing the 35 people who were lynched in Shelby County, the 21 that we know about. Our accomplishments, that we put up 4 markers already. We have some more in the pipeline. In fact, we're planning on doing a marker dedication this year on July the 15th to the 3 men that were lynched as a result of the People's Grocery lynching, which set off the career of Ida B. Wells. And the reason we're going to do that on July the 15th is that on July the 16th, there's another committee in Memphis that has raised a fund and is going to dedicate a statue to Ida B. Wells on her birthday on July the 16th. Other things that we've accomplished, in doing the work that we've done, we have connected family members who did not know each other, who also did not know that they had a relative that was lynched. That was one of our more successful experiences that we've had. And the main thing, our thrust is to connect the past to the present day reality. That was especially true with the events that occurred in 2020. What is one of the biggest lessons that our organization has learned since our existence? Shelby County, as you know, has 7 different municipalities in it. Obviously, some of those 35 lynchings occurred in very small communities. Not all of them were inside the city limits of Memphis. They occurred throughout Shelby County. And so one of the things that we learned as we began to memorialize these people is that we had to get local community buy-in. And that kind of goes back, Carol, to what you were talking about in Edgefield. You've got to find a way to work. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but you have to start the conversation with them. But that was one of the biggest lessons that we learned. The other thing we found out, there are a lot of people out there that need a space, both black and white, where they can come and have this difficult conversation. The other thing we realized, there is a lot of pent-up demand among all kinds of people to want to begin to address this legacy of racial terrorism, but they have no earthly idea where to start. The Lynching Sites Project, I've said on many occasions, provides a safe space where people can, in fact, come in and have that conversation. What is the biggest challenge your organization is currently facing? I mentioned a few minutes ago about the L. Person lynching. The L. Person lynching occurred on the banks of the Wolf River, underneath what at that time was a Macon Road Bridge. And one of the commitments that LSP made is that we would develop that site similar to what you're doing in Chattanooga around the Ed Johnson project. And right now we are beginning to have meetings with the Wolf River Conservancy, with Shelby County, and the other groups about developing the site. And so that's the thing that we're facing right now. The question you asked, what would make it worth your organization's time to partner and collaborate with other Tennessee racial justice organizations across the state? And what I'm about to say is based on my experience doing this and talking with other people around the state and in other localities outside of Tennessee. I think the real advantage is that the work that we are doing, there is no model to go back because no one has done this kind of work in Jackson or Weakley or Chattanooga or where or what have you. But one of the things where I think we can get great bang for the buck is that all of us want to continue this work and all of us want to continue to put up markers, memorials, artifacts that tell the story. It's getting the funding for it. And so I think our uniting to go in, because there are some large funds out there, like the Kellogg Foundation that set aside, I think, $90 million. The Mellon Foundation set aside $250 million. And there's other organizations like that. There are organizations and entities that are wanting to sink money into this. I don't know that any one of us standing alone would really get enough bang for their buck to be able to get the dollars that we need. But I think collectively, if we can collectively work together, I think we can go after a much larger piece of that. And I'll defer most of that commentary to Margaret. And let me just mention one other thing. In Brownsville, they are just getting started. They had the first meeting 2 nights ago and asked me to be a part of that. They're going to form and organize and do that. But they're looking at getting the duplicate column from Montgomery also. And so with that, I don't want to take all the time. So let me stop right there. Go ahead, because I could talk forever about a bunch of things we're doing.
Exactly, John. Thank you. It's always interesting, by the way. So I enjoy it. Thank you. Now, Margaret, he did defer to you. Do you want to chime in on that real quick before we go to, I think, our other 2 organizations?
I'll just briefly say that, as John mentioned, we're really interested in having these kind of statewide conversations as a way to be able to, apply to larger funds also to support the work that's happening all over the state and really give resources to Tennessee-based organizations. We threw our hat in the ring for a Kellogg grant and referred to the Beck Center for supporting you all's work. And we know it's kind of like, we are interested in just figuring out where the big resources are across the nation and what big pools of funding are becoming available, and then getting in touch with Tennessee coalitions and saying, can we apply to a grant to support your work? And if we get it, all the funds will go to you. We don't have a stake in it. We just want to be able to empower different Tennessee groups who are already doing this and support you all in whatever way possible. So, and John and I are interested in following up with people more and kind of saying, what would you want funding for? How can we, connect you to pools of resources that could help you accomplish your goals? And we can talk more about that later, but I'll let more people introduce themselves.
Thank you for filling in on that. And also too, I'll let Dave Yoder, one of our other board members, introduce themselves after the other organizations go. But between Beck and We Remember Nashville, either one of you all want to go? All right. Brittany, can you hear me?
Can you hear me now, Lamont?
Yes, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Hey y'all. Brittany Pascal with We Remember Nashville. I'm pulling up the questions you had so I can make sure to answer them. We are based in Davidson County. Our main goal is to bring narrative and public memory around racial terror. So we're focused right now on the 9 known lynchings that occurred in Davidson County. But a big part of our work is also connecting the past work to the present work. So a big part of our work is connecting some of the police brutality we're seeing in our city, these current events of lynchings, modern day lynchings all over the country. How do we connect that to racial terror, kind of draw a through line? We have 2 markers up in Nashville proper, right off the Woodland Street Bridge. We put them up in June of 19. We have a marker coming up hopefully this summer that is in the Metro Historical Commission has given us probationary approval for it. So we're having some issues with getting it approved because it's going in a very conservative part of town. So definitely working on that. I'm currently on fellowship with an organization called Encore. It's an innovation fellowship. So we are working to make our work even more intergenerational. So looking at doing some projects around having younger people and older people creating a lasting public memory project around our markers. So something like a walking tour or a like digital guided journal, that kind of thing. That's in the works. And we're going to have, for the first time this summer, we're going to have opportunity now, which is a program the mayor's doing. We're going to have youth interns. They're going to be called peer historians. And so they're going to be working on research. They're going to be working on our community engagement, community partnerships, and on whatever this intergenerational project is as we continue to build out. Also, like, worked with TSJ for a minute, so pretty and am affiliated with them loosely. So pretty familiar with what's going on throughout the state. We are an approved coalition through Equal Justice Initiative. We have a good working relationship with EJI. We are a 501c3. So we have some experience there, but would not necessarily advise that for like newer coalitions, just after the process that we had to go through with physical sponsorship. And so could definitely have some experience there, come from a community organizing background. And so that's how I kind of approach the work, very community centered, and just very excited to see what's going on across the state. I visited the Ed Johnson project up in Chattanooga, and just had planned to go down to Madison County for the marker, but then COVID happened. So just like very excited to be connected to the statewide work, whatever that is, to offer whatever I can, and to partner however, so that we can make this work. We won't be reinventing the wheel. We can pool our resources together and really push the work forward. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome, Brittany. Thank you very much. I guess last but not least, Beck Cultural Exchange Center.
Hi, my name is Reverend Renee Kessler, and I am in Knoxville, Tennessee. And I thank Dave Yoder for inviting Beck to the table. And I'm very honored to meet you, Mr. Turner, and all of those on the call. Of course, I've looked at a lot of Mr. Ashworth's work, so it's an honor to be in the presence of great people of like minds. I'm honored. Beck is an organization that's been around since 1975. We were actually created as a result of a project called Urban Renewal, which of course was not unique to Knoxville. It's a federal program. It's happening all over the country. But absent of Beck, there's no single African-American history or cultural museum in East Tennessee doing what we do. We're a state repository for Black history and culture. I want to say on the EGAI project, back in the spring of 2017, I received a report about a lot of the information on the lynching project, specifically in Knoxville. And I also did the surrounding counties, because as I mentioned, there's no one else in East Tennessee sort of doing what we do as a repository for history, Black history and culture. So I wanted to get all of the surrounding communities. And I thought it'd be great to start with the lynching victim in Knoxville, see how that goes, and then be able to branch out to help the other communities with the projects in their areas. We brought together a team of folks, about 10 local folks who were very interested in the project, to be as a committee of Beck to do this with EJI. And what we discovered was Mr. James Perry, who was the one lynching victim that we have of record, which goes to show that either we have no racial issues in Knoxville, or we have so many, they just are not documented anywhere. Nevertheless, let's just say all we could find record of was one. So we know that better than to know that there were certainly, if you've got that many in Shelby County there, and you found 15 or 20 more than what you originally had, there's 200 or 300 more that we don't know about. So we know that there are other victims, but all we could go on is what they had given us at that point. And what I will tell you is one of the things that makes Beck unique is we have a lot of archives and original documents from the Black newspapers that we had in Knoxville that no one else has. Our archive studio consists of over 50,000 objects of historical artifacts that many people have never seen. And we're trying to get the collection digitized. I say that because that's where we discovered that Mr. Perry was not lynched. And so after discovering that we had the records in the newspaper articles, we could not prove that he was lynching. That he had died of smallpox. Again, you want to tread cautiously when you talk about these kinds of things, because you don't want people to think that there's any fallacies or anything with the work that EJI is doing. It's so important. You don't want to shed light. At the same time, it's our responsibility as historians to ensure that the history is correct. And EJI had a burden of proof that they looked at based on the information that they had. So they explained that to us, and I understand that. But we could not in good conscience go forward with putting, a mark or a memorial, knowing that we had contrary evidence. I will tell you that most recently, within just a few months, the work that we did in the spring of 2017, another group decided maybe they felt like they could convince themselves that it was a lynching, because it was just this need to, and I get that. And we knew them. So we gave them all of the research we had. And I said, if you can prove us wrong, please feel free to do so. What I like about what they did is that they didn't really find anything else in addition, and they actually found additional information and support what we'd already said. So they did take it one step further and send it to EJI so that they could correct the records. And they did. EJI sent back a letter indicating that that they would make those corrections, and that, again, about their burden of proof, but doesn't negate the important work at all. But I just want to share that with this group and with this committee, that it is so important from a historical standpoint narrative. The last thing you want to do is do something that sets us back in terms of putting focus on something, because people want us to do that and then be able to say delegitimize our work. And we don't ever want that. We don't ever want that to happen. That is our work with EJI in that project. And it doesn't mean that Beck won't pick up the mantle again and look at the other communities that are surrounding. We just kind of paused on that for a moment because, again, we felt like we needed to do Knoxville first, and we thought that would be our model to do the other communities. So we'll revisit that. But our biggest work right now is truly with respect to the urban renewal project. Beck is trying to craft the Beck Culture Corridor, which I have created a statewide initiative that Mr. Dave Yoder serves on this committee, and that we're working on. Our goal is to put, Black history and culture in public spaces. And so we want to go back, starting with the area known as urban renewal, and we're going to be able to put those historical monuments, markers, be able to use your own technology in various public spaces to denote where all of those African-American historical sites were within urban renewal, those 107 African-American owned businesses, 15 churches, over 3,000 homes demolished. But again, some of them more prominent figures in Knoxville, when Knoxville was literally almost wiped its Black heritage off the map. And so our goal is to put it back on the map. And in addition, another project that I think the work of THJ would be just wonderful to work with is, and our hope is, as we start in urban renewal, is again to go across the state. I would love to be able to have from East Tennessee to West Tennessee, the Tennessee Heritage Trail, right, where Beck will help with East Tennessee to identify all these extraordinary Black location historical monuments and markers, and we're putting all those things back on a map where we can have driving tours and tourism across the state, and where East Tennessee leaves off, Middle Tennessee picks up, where Middle Tennessee leaves off, West Tennessee picks up. So I really think anytime we could do collaborations across the state, then it behooves us to do that. And I'm honored to be on this call with you and the work that you're doing to put these monuments up, because I want that to be on the Beck Culture Corridor map, so that we can say, when you visit, when you go here, you have to go there. And I'd love to do that tour too, to say, here's the driving tour you want to make sure you take to affirm these locations. So your work is so critical and so important. And I think that can be part of our Beck Culture Corridor. Finally, there's one other project when we talk about hate. We are really focused on the race riots of 1919 with Maurice Mays. And Knoxville, it will be one African-American. We have been trying to get Maurice Mays exonerated 100 years posthumously. We have, I've met with the governor on several occasions personally on this issue to ask him I don't want the pardon, and I've heard that word used. We want full exoneration. And I will tell you that the city council for Knoxville did submit a resolution to exonerate Maurice Mays. It was 100% unanimous support by the city council, as well as the mayor, who also sent the recommendation to the governor's office. that his Black lives 100 years later still matters. And it's because we haven't reckoned with the past that we keep repeating some of the horrors today. So I think that's another great opportunity for us to erect a monument, even if the governor won't do the posthumous task and the right thing. We can still erect a monument in Knoxville for a repentant city. I think that's fitting, and this project could be part of that. I think as far as the questions, I'm hopeful that I've answered. I would say to you, so with all organizations that are nonprofits, funding is always our challenge. So I'm grateful for Margaret. I'm grateful for Mr. Ashworth, and for you, Mr. Turner, who would include Beck in looking for funding for a culture corridor coordinator to help us really pull this whole project together. So that's always the biggest challenge, but that's certainly a big blessing to be a part of that. And what would make it worth our time to be? It's already worth my time. I'm honored.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Is there anything else you'd like to say? Is that it?
I think I'm good.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. David, are you there? We have a few minutes left in respect for people's schedules, everyone's schedule. Dave, would you like to introduce yourself? David Yoder, if you want to come off mute. Okay. So,
now can you hear me?
Oh, there you are. Are you there, Dave?
Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries.
Now, I'm on a cell phone, so
that's okay.
It's a little tricky. I just wanted to thank everyone who joined us tonight and spoke, and certainly thank you and Margaret for putting this opportunity together. There's tremendous things going on across the state. And of course, I'm honored to participate with the Beck Center. I'm mostly here to listen. I'm learning every single day and anxious to do anything I can to help, and looking forward to when COVID is history and I can get out in the community, especially the rural communities, and begin asking questions and meeting people and hoping that I can continue to learn.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. My last question is, by the way, first of all, thank everyone for joining and contributing to the conversation. My question would be, how often, if at all, you would like to reconvene, either quarterly, monthly? I'm just curious to get feedback from y'all, since we're all here right now in this moment. If it was valuable to you, any feedback at all on that?
It was very valuable to me. I can tell you I'm a little overwhelmed with monthly meetings, but I did like your idea of maybe quarterly. I also think the work is such that sometimes it particularly in the moment that we're in, you don't have a whole lot to report right now every month, because I think the work has to be done. So if you would ask me my opinion and my schedule, I would certainly be amenable to a quarterly meeting. Okay. And also emails and things like that to check in is always really nice.
Sounds good. If no one else,
I'd agree with the quarterly meetings. That would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Lamont, let me just say one thing. If each organization can feed articles in that we could put in the THJ newsletter about what's going on, would be something we could also do and have. And I agree with the quarterly meeting.
Awesome. If all hearts and minds are clear, as we would say in Franklin, Tennessee, in our Baptist church, we will adjourn this meeting. But thank you all again. Look for the emails coming out, and we'll be in touch. God bless you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.